I think it's more pressure on Brock Purdy for sure.
For sure it is. No doubt. Sounds like you're not going to be on Dan Campbell's coaching staff in 2024 with that kind of attitude.
Trying to get a guy like Kirk Cousins or a guy like Justin Fields.
Well, those are two different options, aren't they? Two very different options. The divisional round had some incredible moments, but the best performance in this guy's book from any of the stars over the weekend was Jason Kelce. Showed up at the Bills tailgate, chugged booze out of a bowling ball, met Taylor Swift, and celebrated one of his brother's touchdowns by slamming a beer while shirtless in 22-degree weather. And he also picked up a young girl in the stands and brought her so she could meet Taylor Swift too. What a fella.
Man, it looked like he had way more fun at that game than he did playing for the Eagles in the second half of this season, though.
Sure, he's a big-time pro football player, but at the end of the day, he's a human being, Shazier.
From Wondery, I'm Ryan Shazier.
And I'm Dave Damashek.
And this is Gridiron Gut Check.
Yes, welcome to Gridiron Gut Check. Every week I'm talking ball with Steelers icon, two-time Pro Bowler Ryan Shazier. 5-0, you ready to give my takes a gut check from a player's POV?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it then, and let's start with the biggest game of the divisional round in terms of hype in advance. The Bills lost to the Chiefs in a heartbreaker. Game-tying field goal was wide right, deja vu in the final moments. It's hard not to wonder how much of this loss was the Bills beating themselves and how much of it was Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just being a tick better. Obviously not a gargantuan gap, but enough to consistently beat their AFC rival. I say this could be the end of the Josh Allen Bills as a legit Super Bowl contender. How say you, Shazier?
It would be hard for me to say that this is the end for Josh Allen and the Bills because at the end of the day, Josh Allen is still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I understand that he wasn't able to win this game over Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, but he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He has some of the best arm talent. He makes some of the best plays in the best moments. It's just unfortunately, he always goes up against that guy that's very similar to the GOAT. And he might be the young GOAT. And that's Patrick Mahomes. He just keeps running to Patrick Mahomes. And that's the problem that pretty much everybody else that's not Tom Brady runs into. But I wouldn't say that this is the end, but I know that they have some big key losses that they're about to have. And to me, I think that's going to make it a little bit tougher for them because Josh Allen cap hit goes from like 16 million, 15 million to now it's going to be about 45 million. So that makes it a lot harder to win a Super Bowl because you're not going to be able to add those really important pieces like
well, sure, it's before. Not an indictment of Josh Allen's individual talent, but your point is exactly right. In a salary capped league, he's about to take up a much greater percentage of that overall available money for the Buffalo Bills. And you know who else is? Stephon Diggs. Have you seen his deal over the next few years? It is heavy, mid to high $20 million range. And there's no way reasonably out from under it unless they can deal that contract away from a would-be contender, someone who wants to go for it all next season. As it stands, the math is, Shazier, if you look at who is getting to the Super Bowl this millennium, the quarterbacks in their season 2 through 6 have played in 26 of those Super Bowls. Years 7 through 14, only 11 Super Bowls played by guys that deep into their career. Guess where Josh Allen's about to go into? Year 7 of his career. The math is against you because of exactly what you're talking about. You're tenured. You're taking on way more of the cap than you were under your rookie deal, and it hurts the depth of the overall team.
Yeah, the math is starting to math for the Buffalo Bills. And you got to think about it. They're about to lose Gabe Davis. Micah, I don't know if they're going to lose him, but it's a possibility. It's going to be hard paying 2 receivers top dollar like that. Then you also they're about to have Micah Hyde, who's possibly about to leave. You have to think about it. And then there are older players that they expected to perform in certain moments like this are performing. Von Miller this season played 13 games.
They still got him under contract too next year, and that's a heavy cap hit.
And he played 13 games. He had 0 sacks and 5 tackles. I understand he had things going on in his personal life and a lot going on, but that is not the Von Miller that we are used to seeing, accustomed to seeing. Von Miller was on the come up of possibly being one of the best pass rushers of all time, and he already was, but he was trying to constantly get those sacks to add to his numbers to make his resume look better. He's the first ballot Hall of Famer, but with seasons like that, you're going to need Von Miller to step back up into the role that he had last year, and other players to step up. Like Shakir, he had a big game this week, and other players like that, players like James Cook, and maybe run the ball a little bit more and find other ways to win, because they're going to lose a lot of talent, and they're going to need young guys to step up in the roles that normally those big time free agents that you'll be able to play to win those games.
Well, the model that they need to follow, and it's easier said than done, is what KC's done. They've drafted exceptionally well underneath Patrick Mahomes, and that's why the Chiefs are where they are. They've really built that defense up almost entirely through the draft the last couple of years. The Bills need to hit in the same level of success when they dip into the draft, because free agency isn't going to be really the way to go for them. They can add bits and pieces here and there. The bigger question is, though, like you touched on at the top, I noticed that there's a lot of, maybe it's real. I guess who am I to tell people that they're not actually empathetic? But this sadness for Josh Allen, poor guy, he's so good and he can't get to a Super Bowl. As you touch on, it is not consistently true for the 58 years of the Super Bowl era that if you are in the NFL and playing a quarterback, you're going to be in a conference of other great players. Obviously, some deeply gifted guys throwing the ball at any stage over the last 58 years. But if you're Josh Allen, the reality is you happen to share the conference with the GOAT, or a guy who's probably going to go down as the GOAT in Mahomes, plus Lamar Jackson, plus Justin Herbert. But same was true for Brett Favre, who was playing in the NFC, and Joe Burrow. In the NFC, you used to have Brett Favre and Troy Aikman and Steve Young. That felt sort of like, well, whoever survives, that's going to win the Super Bowl. And generally speaking, they did win the Super Bowl because of that. There are these moments in history that feel sort of unfair, or it's stacked on one side. That's the way the cookie crumbles for some of these guys. Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning are two of the all-time greats. They just happen to be in the same conference with Tom Brady, so they didn't get to as many Super Bowls as they otherwise might have. That's the way it goes, and I think it's very strange that people are... I get it if you're a Bills fan, you're down in the dumps, devastating. Every fan is wounded and licking their wounds as we speak. But where do you come down on that? This, like, a poor Josh Allen deserves better. It is what it is. This is competition at the highest level, right?
Who would you say Josh Allen is from the past? Like, what quarterback would you say Josh Allen is?
I've said it a million times, and I'll say it for the 1,000,001st now. He's Cam Newton and Ben Roethlisberger's love child.
Right. So if Buffalo gets a middle of that, they get a middle of that. Cam Newton never won a Super Bowl, but he been to one. Ben has won two. So if Josh Allen wins one, I think the city of Buffalo maybe call him, their favorite child of all time. So at the end of the day, you might be in the same hemisphere as the GOAT. You might be in the same division as the GOAT. And you have to also understand, Patrick Mahomes is here, but there's still other people rising up. Think about it. CJ Stroud and this Texans team, nobody expected them to be there. Their team is significantly less talented than everybody else's team in the whole AFC, and they made it to the divisional round. So you have to also worry about these guys too. But what I'm saying is, if Josh Allen wins one or wins two, man, I think that the city of Buffalo and all those fans there are going to be very grateful and thankful for that. But I think it's going to be really hard, especially the way that KC is building up their team. And like you said, building up from the draft. It's only so many franchises that do really well building up from the draft. The New England Patriots used to do well with it, but they're not doing as well right now. The Steelers do well with it, but they're just constantly in the fight, but you're talking about winning championships. The Baltimore Ravens do well with it. The Green Bay Packers do well with it. A lot of other teams in the NFL don't constantly do a good job of drafting the talent, and in the talent stays and they build championships there. So that's something that every team in the NFL is hoping that they can do as well, because that's not an easy solution right there.
The people that want to lean on and point out, well, actually, Josh Allen is based on the advanced analytics. And if you look at the Bills DVOA, this is a historical anomaly and really they deserve better. Well, the bottom line is, are you sitting there, are those analytics people going to see Avengers movies and picking apart the third act and saying like, I don't know, I feel like Thanos deserves a little bit better based on the numbers he has on his side and how powerful he ultimately is. I think we should reject that Iron Man defeated him in that one-off situation because if we run that back, statistically, Thanos is going to win the majority of the time, but he didn't. That's not what we're doing in this entertainment-based reality show, which is what we're looking at. It's not a math equation.
Yeah, no, the thing is with Josh Allen, I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for anybody that plays the game of football. The only people I feel bad for is individuals that get hurt. If you get hurt, obviously, but if you out there lose, like Bass, he's at home. He knows the wind. He knows it's cold. He's in a situation where that's a very favorable kick. He's on the right hash where they probably wanted him to be at. He missed the kick. I don't feel bad for him. That was his job. When somebody drops a pass in the end zone for the game, I don't feel bad for him. That is your job. If somebody misses a tackle, you get paid 15, 10, 8, 800,000, 200,000. That's your job. I don't feel bad for guys when you're in that situation. It's just sometimes the guy that's in front of you is better than you. Sometimes the guy in front of you makes a better play. Sometimes the guy in front of you wants it more than you in that moment. Josh Allen wanted it, but if that was Patrick Mahomes and they were down by 3 in that moment, Patrick Mahomes is not giving it to Harrison Buckner to win the game. He's pinning the ball in the end zone.
Right. But beyond that, yeah, sometimes the kicker misses a kick and it's a heartbreaker, and the entire season, nay, perhaps the entire shot that you on that team and that era of being on that team that was a Super Bowl contender all gets blown up by one play. Those single inflection points are massive. And people say, play. Well, the sample size isn't. Well, but my point is that, Tuck Rule swings football history towards the Patriots. And if it goes the other way, we have a very different conversation going on. That's the nature of the reality show that we're watching. And that's why it is so suspenseful. There is no safety net. If you screw up in the big game, there is no tomorrow. All those great lines that the action heroes say in the movies, that's what makes it so compelling. To try and steal from that and say, actually, if you look at the DVOA, they really were better. So reject all the drama that you're trying to enjoy over the month of the playoffs perennially and just lean on the stats at the end of every football season, at the regular season, of course.
That's why we play ball. Think about this.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes has how many Super Bowls? He has 2 Super Bowls. He's been to 3. Name how many times his team was the best team that was in the game that they won the Super Bowl, or even in the playoffs. Like, if you go player for player.
You know what? It's a great point that Mahomes really, if not for Dee Ford, and by the way, you can play the same game with Tom Brady's Patriots of adding Lombardi's and taking them away with those individual plays. But yes, Wes Welker catches that ball. Brady has an extra ring. If Mahomes doesn't have some guys that he met out on the street on the way into the Super Bowl to play offensive line for him, they beat Tom Brady's Buccaneers in that Super Bowl. That's the way these things go, and they're imperfect, and it is an imperfect evaluator of who the best team is every year with the trophy. But so long as the season ends with a tournament that is a single elimination and one team wins it and gets that trophy, then that's all that matters, really, when you're evaluating the quarterback league, the quarterbacks who inhabit the quarterback league. That's why they get paid way more than any other teammates do, because they're the most important. So, of course, they have to saddle it, whether you think it's fair or not. They do shoulder the responsibility more than maybe their individual play. The kicker missed it. That still is your legacy, Josh Allen.
That's his problem. If you wanted that win bad enough, you would have got us into this end zone. And that's how the world looks at it, and that's how the record looks at it, and that's how the media looks at it. And when you really think about it, Bill Belichick said it's the best. It's not about having the best players out there. The Bills had the best players. They had obviously the defense was hurt a lot, but if you just go player for player, the Bills team is better than the Chiefs team, player for player. The Chiefs have some really dynamic players, but if you just go player for player, the Bills team is better. But when you think about it, the best team ended up winning that game. In those moments, the players that made all those mistakes at the beginning of the year, those mistakes weren't made. Those plays were made when they needed them. And for Josh Allen and his team, those plays weren't made. Baz is a great kicker, but he wasn't Justin Tucker in that moment. And they needed Justin Tucker.
I think the bottom line is it's not as though Josh Allen has no chance with the Bills specifically of winning a Super Bowl, but it is, you're arguing against the reality of things if you're shaking your fist at Dave for pointing out that that's the fact. It's the same thing as people like, why do they keep, it's completely different conversation, but it's the same logic with analytics people saying like, no, you're wrong, that Josh Allen is actually as good as Patrick Mahomes and all of that. And the result of the game is neither here nor there. It's the same thing as the people who are bellyaching about cutaways to Taylor Swift. She's the most famous person on the planet. It would be weird if they didn't, but you want to control the conversation. And because you have opined you don't want to see her, you want the world to bend to that decision. And it's not going to do it because there are some obvious reasons why they're not going to bend to that. Same thing. We want to enjoy these playoffs. This is high drama. Stop trying to undermine it with all your fancy analytics. Now, let's move on to the other side of things, that where the Niners squeaked by the young Packers. It was a rainy day/night in Santa Clara. Jordan Love may be the more dynamic QB, but Purdy was the one, in the end, lousy as he was over the majority of the game, to pull off that game-winning drive, the first fourth-quarter comeback of his career, and Jordan Love made the kind of superhero mistakes we've seen from past Packers gunslingers Favre and Rodgers. If the Niners can't get it done against the Lions or fall to the AFC champ, I wonder which of these two teams feels better about their QB and their chances of long-term success after 23. How say you, 5-0?
If you're asking whose future I like better, Green Bay or 49ers, I'm taking Green Bay. And the reason I'm taking Green Bay is Jordan Love is younger, correct? Oh, they're around the same age, right? They're very similar when it comes to age.
I guess, yeah.
They're very similar because Brock Purdy played 4 or 5 years in college. Jordan Love came in early. He sat 2 or 3 years. I just think the core, like Jordan Love showed me that he has the ability to be absolutely an elite quarterback in the NFL. Like he showed that he has the ability to do that. He was top 10 in passing. He didn't really turn the ball over. Obviously, he had bad turnovers in this game. But the one thing that I really love about Jordan Love and his Green Bay Packer team that is really exciting for anybody in Wisconsin right now is Jordan Love. He's a younger guy, but everybody around him besides Aaron Jones is young on the offensive side of the ball. All his receivers are extremely young, so they're all going to grow up together. The whole team, the whole offensive side of the ball can grow together. And to me, when you have a quarterback that has a great relationship with his guys and they can understand how to grow together, I think that's great. Brock Purdy, the moment Brock Purdy gets a big contract, all those pieces are gone. Like it's over with for him. I believe in Brock Purdy. I believe in Jordan Love without all the pieces that he has, compared to Brock Purdy and all the pieces that he do have. Like both of them have great running backs, great receivers, all that. But Brock Purdy has way more help, in my opinion, than Jordan Love does. And Jordan Love is still performing at an enormous level right now.
It's really the whole, again, I'm leaning into pretty clearly into the whole notion of the quarterback league and superhero talent and all that. It is going to be fascinating if Brock Purdy, of all human beings, ends up hoisting that Lombardi against, let's say, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, especially looking across the sideline there. And for that matter, what if Brock Purdy vanquishes the number one the first overall pick, Jared Goff? There's something fascinating about there being more pressure on Mr. Irrelevant than there is the visitors from Detroit, helmed by the QB who was the first overall pick, who's now survived the mess of LA. It's fascinating stuff overall.
I think it's more pressure on Brock Purdy for sure.
For sure it is, no doubt.
Because think about it, 49ers team, this team is basically like, hey, we are a Super Bowl team. We're a Super Bowl team. Everybody expects us to win a Super Bowl in these next few years. We have to win a Super Bowl. We just need a quarterback. Now we have a quarterback. But if he don't win, what's the problem? Everybody going into this season, everybody's like, hey, the Lions are a really good team. We got to see where they're going to go. And they just continue to keep chugging along. But nobody at the beginning of the season, besides Q and anybody from Detroit, had the Lions winning the Super Bowl this year.
Yes. By the way, shout out to our producer Q, who is over the moon. He bleeds that Honolulu blue, wears everything Detroit, not just Lions stuff either. He wears it all.
He wears it all.
Even Pistons. That's how committed he is. So we're happy for guys like him. Be careful though, making that trip up to Northern California there, Q. Let's talk about the Lions. They are in the NFC title game this weekend, and it really is marvelous stuff. It was very tight, as I told you it would be, against the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. People, I think, anticipated a steamrolling event there. It was very tight. It came down to the wire just about. And I do think, as I've said before, they are America's team. It really, I get the vibe that if America got to vote on who they like the best out of the Final Four, it would be the Detroit Lions. They have, obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dan Campbell biting those kneecaps, and Jared Goff is a nice rising, like a Phoenix story after being the golden boy and everything being handed to him, then getting kicked to Siberia, a.k.a. Detroit, and now being a hero up there. It's great stuff. The Niners are heavily favored, relatively speaking, round about a touchdown, depending where you're looking. But we don't know if they're going to have Deebo Samuel. Given what happened to the Niners in the middle of the season when a few of their stars, including Deebo, had to sit down, what shot do you give the Lions pulling off one more chapter here of this wonderful story and getting all the way to the Super Bowl? Imagine the trip that would be if the Lions were in the Super Bowl.
So whenever I think of Detroit, I think of Detroit basketball. I think of that. So I got to think about this. So it's so funny to me when you talk about the Lions, because this Lions team is good enough to beat anybody in the NFL. They have the confidence, like I was saying a little bit earlier, in themselves, in their team. They believe that they're better than everybody. And they have all the pieces that you need to win a championship. The Lions, they're a really good team. They have all the pieces. The one thing that the Lions can't have happen is allow Brandon Ayuk to basically do what Mike Evans was doing to Cam Sutton. Like their DBs are good, but their DBs can't allow Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle to be able to run loose, because they're going to already have a tough time stopping the run with Christian McCaffrey. And then now when you get those one-on-one opportunities, their defense has to be able to stand up, because their offense can score with anybody in the league. We're not worried about their offense, but they can't have another showing like they did versus the Buccaneers, because if they do, the 49ers will take full advantage of that. And I'm not going to say it's a blowout, but be able to pull away. But they're good enough to beat any team in the NFL. If the 49ers turn the ball over, it's gonna be a really exciting game to watch.
Here's Dave, the X&O expert's prediction. I think you're going to see a lot of play action right out of the gate from the Lions. They're going to try and jump ahead and then lean on that run game. I do think the Niners, you can run the ball a little bit, especially the way Detroit is capable of running the ball. Their offensive line is at least in the mix for best offensive line in the league. The pass rush that the Niners can bring when they're right can be as nasty as any in the league. I think that's where it kind of comes down to things. I do anticipate ultimately the Niners rolling. I think this is a coronation. I think they get a double-digit victory here. How say you, Shazier? What's your formal prediction here?
I don't understand how Michigan became America's state, because, the University of Michigan, the team up north, they're like, we're America's team.
It's got to hurt.
We're America's team. And then now Detroit is America's team. It's like Michigan, chill out. I honestly think that the 49ers, like you said, I think they're going to win by like 11, 12 points. But the reason I say 11, 12 points is because Dan Campbell goes for twos. He goes for it on fourth down. So I think something tricky is going to happen, and then it's going to be probably like they're going to win by 10.5, so 11 points.
Well, I mean, obviously America's not going to choose Ohio. It's the worst state in the union.
I'm not from Ohio.
All right. I'm just telling you what the score is on that weird state. Up next, you all owe Lamar Jackson an apology. I don't, but the rest of you do for sure. Lamar and the Ravens thoroughly handled them Texans on Saturday, but a rookie QB is nothing compared to what Baltimore has coming their way. It doesn't matter where the game is played on Sunday. The AFC title game is Patrick Mahomes' home turf. By the way, as he pointed out, I pointed out the week before, the Super Bowl is a road game too. So stop talking about how the Chiefs never win any playoff road games. What is the Super Bowl after all?
That doesn't count.
It counts.
That's a neutral site.
Well, they have to travel from their homes to go, right? I mean, so it's a road game. The Chiefs have proven that they just know how to win ball games, obviously. I'm not so sure Lamar Jackson's stellar play this year is going to be enough for him to overcome his own playoff demons. More importantly, the curse of Sposta. I know it's weird that the GOAT is on the other sideline, but this feels like Lamar Jackson needs to win the game right now. Go and get that Super Bowl at this stage in his career. It is the curse of Sposta to get it done here. How say you, Shazier?
I get tired of all these people saying he has to win. He has to win. They say the same thing about Josh Allen. He has to win. For his legacy, he has to win. Lamar Jackson, I think he's already a Hall of Famer. And the reason I say that, he's the best running quarterback in NFL history. But then also, he's about to have his second he's his second MVP. I never heard of a player with two MVPs that has not made it to the Hall of Fame. There's players with one that has not made it to Hall of Fame, but two, so the biggest thing for me, obviously Lamar wants to win.
Right. Is he a competitor or not? Of course he needs to win it if he wants to be held up as one of the great at the position of all time. He has to win a Super Bowl at minimum.
I agree. Right. I agree. And I do think they're going to win. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs, whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. But I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a really good team. But the Baltimore Ravens defense, the way they're flying around, the way they're getting after the quarterback, I feel like the Chiefs, I know the O-line is a lot better, but I can see Patrick Mahomes running around a lot like he did in the Super Bowl when they played against Tampa. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I think that he's going to be running around a lot more. And it's a difference between running around when you got backup linebackers in there and when you got Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen in there. So I think that it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens does a good job of stopping the run, which allows them to force them to pass the ball. Obviously, nobody's not worried about Patrick Mahomes and him passing the ball. But the thing is, when you force somebody to do something, when you want them to do it, that allows your game plan to flow a lot smoother. And I think that Lamar Jackson and his team can definitely do that. And Lamar, they've shown that they don't need a big play to win games, that they can wind you down, run the ball one play at a time. They'll get big plays here and there because the Chiefs don't give up big plays. But I think Lamar Jackson, the way he's playing ball right now, I feel like he's unstoppable. He's running when he needs to run. Their defense is on point. I think that this is the game that Patrick Mahomes loses in the playoff.
I'm with you. I'm on the Ravens here, but if this goes against Lamar and Mahomes wins it, half the buzz will be about, man, how about them Chiefs, road warriors now? They are a dynasty. But also, Lamar Jackson blew it in another big spot, and now we must speculate for another offseason about whether or not he can win the big one. That will be the conversation. I know some percentage of people don't find it satisfying, but that's what we do. That's what legacy talk is. We perpetuate it. There's a reason why Phillip Rivers and Warren Moon are held up, and people always say, hey, by the way, don't forget about Phil Rivers, don't forget about Warren Moon when you're talking about the greats, but they're a tick down. Why? Because the minimum standard is severe. If you are going to be talking about who the best quarterbacks of all time is, you better get to a Super Bowl and you better win it. And Dan Marino, yes, nobody holds up Dan Marino as the best quarterback in the history of people, because he didn't win it. If he would have gotten one ring, that would have been enough for a lot of people to say, all right, I've seen enough. He is the best ever. He didn't. That's what matters. And the other pushback I would give to anybody who wants to debate this with me is Tom Brady the best quarterback you've ever seen? No. You look at his resume. That's how you know he's the best, not because of anything you've seen with your eyeballs. Boy, what a run by Brady. What a throw by Brady. That's never was your reaction watching him play. It's like, man, they won again. Inevitability. Kind of like Thanos in a way.
Me and the producer Hank were talking earlier, and Damani Jones said this. He said Patrick Mahomes is Tiger Woods and Tom Brady is Jack Nicklaus, right? I feel like Lamar Jackson is basically like he's obviously he's not Tiger Woods, but he's probably like Phil Mickelson or something like that, right? So
they both wear red shirts when it's winning time, right?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is, Damani Jones said Patrick Mahomes is Tiger Woods. Everybody said that Jack Nicklaus is the GOAT, but I'm watching it right now and I'm going off of what I watch. And I feel like that's the same thing that's with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is winning these championships, but you can't not go back and say what Lamar done is not one of the greatest things that we ever seen because of how he plays. I understand that he might not win a championship, but I think this is the year he does win it because it doesn't matter if he wins it or Patrick Mahomes win it. The championship is going to be this weekend, and I think that game is at 6:30. Whoever wins that game is winning the championship.
Maybe true, but I think you are forgetting history if you think that Lamar Jackson's legacy will not be dented if he retires and never won a Super Bowl. It's just the way it goes, you know. And I know people get very upset about that, but that's the reality. You can't, when they only give out one Lombardi annually, when there are a ton of good quarterbacks, the math doesn't work out that they're all going to get at least one. It is, like I say, a severe standard that we hold up. All right, let's get to some quick hitters. It's time to roll out the Nickel package. 5 questions, 5 quick answers, 5-0. I hear you chomping on them chips. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Let's do it indeed. Give me your Super Bowl pick.
Oh, wow. That's easy.
Well, you kind of gave it to us, didn't you?
So this one really hurts me living in Pittsburgh and going to The Ohio State University. But I think it's going to be a John Harbaugh sweep this year. I mean, a Harbaugh sweep.
A Harbaugh brother sweep. Well, let me tell you this. If you're a Lombardi counter, then that's not the worst thing if the Ravens win it. You don't want the Chiefs to keep creeping up in terms of franchise Lombardis, but also you don't want the Niners to do it because if they get one, they equal the Steelers in total Lombardi count. Bottom line is, I guess, go Lions. There's
a few teams in football history. You know, I don't know if I'm going to become a coach one day, but I don't think I want to see those guys win a championship ever, and Lions are one of them. I don't know why. Just feel that way. All
right. Well, yeah, maybe I sounds like you're not going to be on Dan Campbell's coaching staff in 2024.
So the thing is, if I become a coach, I'll take that back. So
then you will like them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see you land in Michigan. That would be funny. Let's change our focus from the top to the bottom now. There was a lot of bad football this season. Which team are you picking to have the biggest rebound next year? This is the time for a little bit of optimism for the 28 have-nots, Shazier.
The biggest rebound, I would probably say the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately, I don't want to hear that.
That's too easy. Come on, man.
All right. So the thing is, it definitely depends on who the coach is. If Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, I think the Chargers bounce back and have a really good season. If Bill Belichick goes to the Falcons, I think they have a really good season. And I think that the Bears have a better season as well. It doesn't matter who their quarterback. So let me say this: if the Bears keep Justin Fields, I think they have a bounce back season. That's going to be my team right there. If the Bears keep Justin Fields, I think they have a bounce back season. But if they don't keep Justin Fields, I think they have they're rebuilding.
First of all, they're not going. Jim Harbaugh is going to go to the Chargers. 1, 2. Justin Fields is going to get traded away. So that's an interesting play. Blindly saying whoever gets Justin Fields is going to bump up a little bit.
I didn't say that. I said that if the Bears keep him.
I know. I said I don't think the Bears are going to keep him. I think they're going to move on from him and take Caleb Williams, and Justin Fields has to go somewhere. It's interesting to consider what possibilities exist there. I think the Colts are on the rise, and as of this moment, I guess I would take them to win the AFC South next year.
You said the Colts are thinking about getting Justin Fields?
No. I said that no. I said somebody has to get Justin Fields, be on the other side of that deal when the Bears move him, and you would assume would be a little bit better for having Justin Fields if they're going out to get him as a potential upgrade for him. I think that a random team to throw out there is Washington. I think that they're going to land whoever Chicago doesn't take. Washington's going to wind up. They may end up taking Jaden Daniels over Drake May for all I know. Either way, I think that team has a chance of putting it together. They have some nice pieces there, and things weren't quite right with the Sam Howell season-long experiment. And then you saw Jacoby Brissett go in there at the back end of the season and say, oh, see, this is what it could have looked like if we had a tenured quarterback under center, but we had to look at Sam Howell all season to determine whether or not he was the future. So those would be some of mine. Now let's go kind of the other side of this and talk about the halves, the teams that were playoff teams this tournament. Which of those teams do you think ends up with the worst record next season?
I think the teams that will probably have a worse record next season, one team I had to go with was Tampa Bay. Baker might not be back. Mike Evans might not be back. Mike Evans is not coming back. Devin White, Levante David, Antoine Winfield Jr., Ryan Neal. Those are some key pieces. And if they don't bring all those players back, I think it's going to be a rebuild season for them. So that's a team that I would say that probably will have a worse season next year if they don't bring back a lot of those key pieces.
Well, in terms of record, it's weird. The Bills get into the playoffs, and yet I was never bullish on them, and they did sneak in. But as I kept pointing to, they were Josh Allen and a pass rush, and I disagree with your premise that that's a better roster than what the Chiefs had. I don't see it that way. I would imagine that they're going to fall back a little bit.
I'm talking about a healthy Bills team.
I hear you, but the conversation, it's funny, around the AFC East, you kind of pick up where it was a year ago, or before the season started, which is the Jets are going to be better. And now the Patriots are going to be better, which is a weird thing to say without Belichick, but they're going to move on for Mac Jones and presumably not be any worse than they were than one of the one or two worst teams in the entire AFC. So that spells bad news for the Bills if the rest of the division, because I think the Dolphins are in a weird spot, but I don't necessarily think that they fall back any in year two, even though it's a little unsatisfying the way they finished the year and looking at what they were doing and the way the league seemed to kind of figure out what Mike McDaniels was trying to do. I wonder where they're going to be. I still think that they're going to finish ahead of the Bills next season. So I think the Bills are in a funny spot there. And no, neither of us said the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I'm not saying the Pittsburgh Steelers because obviously I'm going based off of the standard. The standard is the standard, and they shown that they can be there every year, and I don't see them falling off. So
more practically, I know this is a wild swing for the fences, but I do wonder if they've reached a place, and we talk about the AFC quarterbacks, and it's hard to break through if you don't have one of those guys. I wonder if, because the reality is staring them in the face, do they have to do something extreme to try and get Jaden Daniels or Drake May, or is 24, okay, Kenny Pickett, you were a first-round draft pick just a couple of years ago. One more season with you. We're going to get a fail-safe. We hope it's Mason Rudolph plus another guy. But drafting a guy in the second round, drafting Bo Nix, for instance, is not going to solve the issue for the Steelers. They need to get one of those high pedigree cats. Do they try to do that this season? Or if they have middling to pretty good results next year, is that the time they pull the ripcord and really go all in and try and get the best available quarterback? It's interesting. What do you say there, Shazier?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. The approach that I would rather the Steelers go, instead of trading up all those assets, is trying to get a guy like Kirk Cousins or a guy like Justin Fields. Me personally, I would rather do.
Well, those are two different options, aren't they? Two very different options.
So, but I think we can still win with both of those options. One is we're going to have a scheme more with vertical running, or we can even do gap scheme, but more of a zone running type of scheme. Or if we do gap scheme, it doesn't matter. But a play action, very heavy play action scheme offense. Or, we sit in the shotgun and Kirk Cousins, he's a very veteran quarterback. He's going to be very professional. He's going to go in there and make sure that the team and the players that he's playing with are on great communications. I know for a fact that Kirk Cousins will have George Pickens as one of the top receivers in the NFL if he's a quarterback. And so if that's the case, every time George touches the ball and has a big game, we win games. So when you think about it on the offensive side of the ball, but if you take the Justin approach, with Justin DJ Moore still was one of the highest receivers in the league this year with Justin. And I think we'll be able to use our our running game was way better than the Bears. So to be able to use the two running backs and Justin to mix things up, and then when he's in trouble, be able to create plays, I think that Justin will be a good fit too. So I think either one of those guys will be a really good fit for the Steelers. I don't want to see them trading up multiple first rounds for next year, because that's how you don't build a team.
There's no indication they're going to do that. I'm just talking about the reality that is the AFC at this point. And speaking of which, as we move on to the next one here, every time I watch Mahomes take care of Josh Allen, maybe we'll watch him vanquish Lamar Jackson for his next act, but I always looking at it, I think this QB, very talented guy, but thought experiment, how many QBs in the NFL right now legitimately are good enough to give their team a chance to beat Kansas City and win the Super Bowl if, like I say, the Chiefs stand in your way of doing that? You could get it easy and have somebody else do the hard work for you, but if you have to go through Chiefs, how many teams do you think are wired with their quarterback on down to vanquish the reigning champions?
So I'm just going to flip the script on you, because first of all, I'm going to have to say nobody. And the reason, there's nobody that can go head.
That's a fair answer.
There's nobody that can go head to head with Patrick Mahomes if you're just talking about quarterback and win these games. And the reason I say that, Patrick Mahomes is 13-1 in the playoffs versus every quarterback that's not Tom Brady. He's 0-2 versus Tom Brady. His record is 13-3 with 4,561 yards passing, 38 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. That's an MVP caliber season as a quarterback in the playoffs. So just let's let you know that. Then when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, they're the first team in NFL history to win 2 playoff games in 5 straight seasons in NFL history. So that just lets you know the type of guy and the type of team that you're running across every single time you're about to play Patrick Mahomes. The way to beat Patrick Mahomes, you have to have a legit defense to slow them down, because it's not my quarterback versus your quarterback and my quarterback wins this game. The defenses are going to have to step up, and you're going to have a serviceable quarterback that can put points on the board. I'm not saying that he has to outplay Patrick Mahomes, but he has to put points on the board. The game that the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Chiefs, Joe Burrow didn't outplay Patrick Mahomes. Is the defense really played well and slowed Patrick Mahomes down and made him create mistakes? If you can do that, I think if you have a really good, like a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, you have a Joe Burrow, even a Kirk Cousins, like for instance, if you have a good defense that slows him down and that can help put points on the board. But if you're talking about, hey, we don't have no defense and we out here just playing ball, I don't think there's any quarterback in the NFL right now at this time that can go head-to-head versus Patrick Mahomes and get their team to the Super Bowl, because he's going to win every single time.
Well, my answer is the one that you just provided there, and it's I'm being a smarty pants because you didn't see him this year, but Joe Burrow is the kryptonite to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he went into Arrowhead in 2 straight title games, won the first one, and were it not for that crazy late hit out of bounds in the final minute, he would have beaten him back to back there. So that's my answer, is Joe Burrow is wired to do that. And it is interesting, to your point, he is not more physically gifted. He doesn't have the live arm that Mahomes has. He's not the runner that Mahomes is. But it's weird. I know people don't like talking about who's a winner, and there's no math to support that except the win total. That's the metric that measures that one. Last question for you here, Shazier. The Pro Bowl's coming up, and no one seems to care. Why don't you take a minute here and improve the Pro Bowl?
So the Pro Bowl now is like flag football, right?
It's games. Yes, it's a series of games.
Honestly, I don't know how to improve the Pro Bowl, because the way that the game is now, players aren't going to go out there and get hurt and play a physical game because they understand how they can lose a season during a game. I think the best way of playing the Pro Bowl is allowing like college kids to play in the game. Like, let it be a college all-star game or something like that. You know, and they get help from the NFL players or something.
The best thing used to be, up until 76 or 77, the reigning Super Bowl champion would play a team of college all-stars. And in fact, in the 50s, the college team would beat the NFL. That shows how bad the NFL was before the Super Bowl era got going. The other solution that I've provided for now 20 some years, and every year somebody else steps up. I have a great idea to replace the Pro Bowl, and the world swoons as though it's a fresh idea. I've said this for a long time. The Loser Bowl. The two worst teams by record play head-to-head to determine who gets the first overall pick the following season. It's such a good idea.
The players aren't going to play in that game.
XFL or USFL used it, and this is the pushback players always give. You know how you get them to play, Shazier? You pay them to play in the game. That's how you get them to play in it.
How much are you going to pay them? Like, if I'm saying, like, if for instance, who was the worst team in the NFL this year?
By record, I guess it was Carolina.
The Panthers have
Carolina, and then Washington.
The Panthers have Brian Burns on their team. He makes over $100 million. How much money are you going to pay him to play in that game?
I don't know. And if he's not interested in showing up and performing well to try and earn his team the number one overall pick, then the coach has to use that and apply that as part of his strategy to win the game. That's it. People say, well, why would the incumbent quarterback, want to play well so that they could draft his replacement? Hey, same thing coaches have to deal with was like, we want to run the ball, but the team we're playing against is the best in the league at stopping the run. Figure it out. That's the answer. It's a great idea. Get on board, Shazier. Don't you see I'm an idea man?
I think you're an idea man, but I just know that guys aren't going to play in that game.
All right, fine. Then that's it for this conversation, and that's it for this episode of Gridiron Gut Check.
Hey, so make sure to follow, rate, and review the show on wherever you're listening. Check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel, and make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you all next week.